Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hope you guys are doing well on a Friday night tonight. We've got a special guest tonight, and we will get to him in 1 second. But first, Tim, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing great, man. It's Friday. I know you don't want to talk about it, but week 0 is tomorrow. It is the start. We got a couple of games, not necessarily major games, but we got some under the talk tomorrow. So if you guys want to, get back to us next week and tell us how you felt about week 0, man, we ready to talk about it. Football is here, baby.
Listen, at the end of the day, I don't. I get Caleb Williams is playing tomorrow. I don't want to watch USC versus San Jose State, right? It just doesn't get me hyped. At the end of the day, though, we do have 8 days until kickoff.
8 days.
Jordan Shipley days until kickoff. But first, before we get started, I do want to bring in our very special guest tonight, Steve from Fanatic Perspective. Steve, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me on, fellas. We are Terrence Brooks away from kickoff. We are Casey Kane away, Casey Kane days away from kickoff. I'm so excited to be here.
Casey Kane is 88, isn't he?
He has changed his number to number 8.
There's too many. There's too many of those numbers. There's too many of those changes. Listen, we used to be X amount of days from kickoff, but of course it's changed to 1. So we got a week before we get hyped up for that. But hey, we've got an action-packed show tonight. We got Steve from Fanatic Perspective. We're really excited to get rolling. But first, before we get to the fun, I just want to give a shout out to fanbattlesports.com. Visit Fan Battle Sports. You can visit all of our shows there on the site. The focus, we've got the AFC South with the AFC South Fan Battle podcast, broken down into the 4 teams within the division. We've got the bad teams of the division. We all suck, but the worst of the worst. The Jaguars, the Titans, and the Texans, all trash. A little bit less trash on there, of course, with the Colts. I am your biased host, and we are and A.R. Richardson was him last night. If you have anything else to say, don't really care because he was phenomenal. He's basically Patrick Mahomes already. But
really, are we doing this early? Are we starting off this early?
Listen, completely different show, right? Sorry, I got lost there.
Right, like you didn't watch Sam Ehlinger play last night.
Bro,
like you didn't watch it.
Good.
Right.
I was going to bring that up as a topic, Texas in the NFL, but I don't think we'll have enough time to get to it. If we do it, we'll squeeze it in. Also, please follow us on Twitter at LHFanBattle. We're there. We're talking trash. We're living up to the Fan Battle name. Listen, the entire premise of the network is to talk trash and be delusional and love your team and do all that fun stuff. So that is what we'll do here. We're pretty active on there. We interact with pretty much anyone, whether you want to hate on Texas like everyone does these days or every day, right? Because that's what people do. Or if you love Texas because you're in the club, well, we'll interact with all of you guys. Now that we got into cleaning stuff up, Steve, if you wanna kind of give us an intro about yourself, how you got into podcasting,
right?
Let the crew know who you are, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, fellas, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to cross stream here on Fanatic Perspective. So if some of my friends show up from the space to kind of add to the discussion, forgive me for their behavior here. But in all seriousness, I'm really excited just for exposure and everything. And everybody, please hit that like button, subscribe, the whole bit. Go over to Longhorn Fan Battle right now, subscribe, all the links that were put out just to show that love and help grow this Texas content creator community. But with that being said, to answer the question, I started my journey, if you will. I'm a fan of a lot of different teams, like kind of similar to yourself, right? Where I grew up a Spurs fan. I grew up a Cowboys fan. I grew up a Texas Longhorn fan. I look at them like my children. People always ask me, do you love one more than the other? You don't ask that about people's kids. So don't ask that about my teams. I'm the same way, right? But with that, I always wanted to kind of find an outlet to express myself, to share my views, and just see if I could connect with like-minded people. And I actually started my YouTube channel. My first video was about boxing. My first video was about Canelo Triple G1 in 2017. And I thought I was actually going to be a boxing channel. I'm an avid boxing fan. But what really started hitting with people was when Texas lost to Maryland in the Tom Herman era.
Yeah. That was rough.
Both times.
Both times, yeah.
Both times.
That was not,
so
that was, yeah.
I realized, and I think the community at that time, there wasn't really a Texas YouTube presence like there is today, and outlets like at all, right? And college football on YouTube was still in its infancy, I would say, honestly, at that time. And it was therapy. It was therapy for us as fans during those early days. And then we realized we could also have good days in therapy together and talking about this and breaking stuff down after games and, previewing games and having hope and then talking about our frustrations or talking about successes. I'm looking at y'all's faces. Y'all can relate to what I'm saying.
Listen,
right?
Yeah.
I don't know what hurt more. Was it the second time versus Maryland or the first time? I think the second time it hurt more because it was like, Sam came back. We thought we were going to have a decent team. It was after the 10-win season, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Or maybe the second time around was the 10-win season. So
no, the second time was the 10-win year.
It was the 10-win year. So yeah,
it was because we ended up beating USC and we beat OU.
That's right. Yeah. So Maryland is just like one of those teams, and there's a handful of these teams in the Big Ten that we think Rutgers, Maryland, just like mid-level teams where you're even at that time we're just like, yeah, we suck or we're not very good or we don't know what this team is. But Maryland, a basketball school, school that prides itself on going to the Elite Eight and the Final Four and the Sweet 16 every year, every 5 years or whatever that is. It just did not sit well. And
do you know what it's like being somebody who grew up in Maryland, 15 minutes from College Park, telling all of your friends and family and loved ones your entire life about Texas football, and it means more in Texas and Texas high school football and our recruits and this and that, and then we finally get to play each other after my entire life. They've watched me literally wear burnt orange from birth because my mother was a Texas Ex, God rest her soul, and we finally play them. Finally play the Terps. That was a special type of hurt for me personally. And my brother's a Maryland fan.
Oh, geez.
My brother's a Maryland fan.
House divided. There you go. That's an interesting division of the household, though.
That's a different kind of hurt. I thought Taysom Hill riding the bike was a thing, but
no. See, now you're trying to just dig deeper and deeper. Hey, listen, here the positive is we're not out here losing to Appalachian State. Anyway.
Right.
But Steve, we really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for coming in and supporting the show. Thanks for everyone supporting us as well. But hey, let's get into speaking of wars and hurt and people that are hurt. Let's talk about the Big 12 because they are mighty hurt. Right. So yesterday, Brent Yormark was he was on Texas Tech's campus, and there was some conversation that was happening. He was trying to hype up the crowd. And one of the things that he said, and I tried to bring up the quote, but I don't have it with me, but it was something along the lines of, I was here when you guys beat Texas here in Lubbock last year. I'm going to be at that game in Austin this year, the day after Thanksgiving. And I'm rooting. This is the thing that irks people the most. I'm rooting for you to beat those Longhorns. Basically is what he said. Hey, whatever you do, keep it close so I can rig it for you. And we can move on. So, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Thoughts, reactions. I know you've had some time to probably speak to this previously and had it cook. What are you feeling?
I'm not going to turn up like the clip that's been going around on Twitter like I did the other day. That was a call to action for this team. And that's what this needs to be. Right. If I'm Steve Sarkisian, I'm saying thank you. This is energy that I didn't even think I was going to get that I got now. Right. This is stuff I can put on the we always talk about the proverbial bulletin board material, and a lot of it is BS in sports. However, in a game where there's such a slight edge, especially in football, and that slight edge matters week over week. When people start saying stuff like that, and it does add an extra layer of motivation, want to stick it to somebody. And I think Texas is now in a position where they can be unapologetic about, oh, we're the good guys, or we're trying to be civil, or we're trying to have good sportsmanship. You know what I want to hear this season? I want to hear Texas is classless. I want to hear they're a bunch of a-holes. They don't care. That's the type of Texas I want to see. And I know that it's in there somewhere, because I've seen Sark, not as a head coach yet. That's the big question. But I've seen Sark as a play caller be on some disrespectful teams, a.k.a. 2019 and 2020 Alabama. They were disrespectful. I've seen Sark and USC, back with Pete Carroll and them, be straight up disrespectful to everybody. They were running, and I'm talking about running go routes in the fourth quarter. You know what I'm saying? We don't care.
Which
all right? We don't care about the feelings.
Yeah. That's a good point. Again, this team has the talent offensively to put up 40, 50, 60 points a game. And you know what? That's all I hope. I hope for that 70 piece against Texas Tech here at home, right? I hope for it next week. Like, this team should win 60-3 next week, something crazy like that.
Right.
They've got the offensive firepower to do so. Tim, what you got? What do you have for us?
I've been thinking about this for a while since it happened, right? So I'm going to say some things that might be a little bit out of character. So for the family members that may be watching, church members, things of that nature, you're about to get a really real version of me, probably that you've never seen before, but you probably only hear about it on a football field. One, if there's any way that I could possibly get a burnt orange and black uniform made, I'm trying to get that made right now, because I'm trying to steamroll everybody's ass. There was a year in which, when we won the national championship, we played against Colorado. We beat them 70 to whatever, to 3.
70 to 3. That was Joe Clack
like
game.
That. Heads need to roll every single time. I mean, don't let you step on their throats from the time that they're there to the time that they get out of there. We already got Yermican in our back pockets, waiting for us to just go, just to mess up. You have to bust everybody's ass, literally. You cannot let up. I mean, you need to finish all tackles. Everybody needs to swim around the ball on the defense perspective. Offensive line, you need to be driving your guys 5, 6, 7, 8 yards out the ball, getting to your second man. Running backs, you need to be pumping them legs. You need to be trying to do everything that you can to literally, you have to. Because if you don't and you keep these games close, it's not going to work out in your best interest. It's already been, and that's for y'all, you Oklahoma fans out there. That goes for y'all too. I don't have you guys winning the Big 12, but it's already out there. I feel like it's more of a shot at Texas than it is Oklahoma, because of just the way it was presented towards towards the public, right? And so, with that being said, man, you literally, everybody's head has the goddamn roll. There's no room for mistake. Like, you literally have to play perfect football. And I know that's so cliche, right? Everybody says that, but like, you have to play sound football, and you need to run it up every single game for 13 weeks.
If we're thinking about the end of the season, right, and it does, let's just say Texas does go undefeated, or they have one loss. Let's say they have one loss, and it comes down to every single game. There should be no doubt in those games that Texas should be in the playoff, right? You should be running up the score. We shouldn't be settling. No more of this waiting in the third quarter, running the ball 50 times. Oh, sorry, Sark. He didn't listen to his offensive coordinator in his headset. Oh, it was on mute. Like, none of this crap. Like, you put it, run, like Steve said, you run go routes with your first string offense in the fourth quarter.
All game.
Yeah.
all game.
Every game.
There's literally a target on your back by the guy that's supposed to be. He's not supposed to have a favorite, or he's not supposed to voice that he has a favorite. You could be from the state of Texas and still be the Big 12 commissioner or whatever the case may be, but you're supposed to represent the conference as a whole. Now, I understand Texas and Oklahoma are not going to be here next year, but at the same time, it's like we're still here right now. Yep. So in this moment, you shouldn't have a favorite. You shouldn't be telling teams, I'm going to be there in Austin, and I was here when y'all beat them the last time. You first off, you're a shit commissioner. Let's just get it out there and put it in. There's no other commissioner that's made any. I've never heard any remarks like this.
Hold on. I gotta take care though. And
okay.
Shout out to the super chat, Poke Casino. Appreciate you. Yeah. Really, all the yardage and stats you're talking about, 100% agree. 100% agree, and that goes offensively and defensively. I do want to make to Tim. This is my counterpoint.
Right.
I think he's taking the Vince McMahon route. I think he's in the entertainment business. he's in the ratings business. Look at what he's done to the Pac-12.
Right.
Look at what he did. He took over a conference because I'm telling you, if this guy was here, look, we got to look at it objectively for a second. If this guy was here, the problem was we have Bowlesby as the commissioner for so many years that sat on his hands and was useless. And it was Weekend at Bernie's running this conference, and we had to get out. Texas and OU.
It was kind of a circus. It was a circus.
He wasn't progressive. Right. He had no ideas. There was nothing coming from him. As much as I took what this man said in Texas Tech, in Lubbock, Texas, as a sign of disrespect for this season, he is going the Vince McMahon route. He is going a political route where he's talking to his base, which is the new Big 12, right? He is gassing his base up, right? So I really understand where he's coming from and how he's trying to keep the conference alive and become, honestly, one of the 4 eventual super conferences. Right now, we have 2 that are really established in the SEC and now the Big 10. He's trying to be either the 3rd or the 4th one. I get it. All I'm saying is, if you want ratings, sir, we'll give it to you because you're going to hand me that trophy in Arlington. That's all I'm saying.
And so you make a very, very strong argument here. From the way I take it, it's kind of like you have to take the LeBron James approach. Remember when he tried to get out of Cleveland ever so effortlessly, but it didn't
really down on the cool.
It didn't necessarily work out in his favor. It's just and the media turned on him, right? We already know that is Texas back is a joke that's been going on for 10 years now. We know about the Marylands, the BYUs, the Texas Techs. That goes all the way back 15 17 years, where these are games where you should be handling your business, but something happens, something weird or funky happens, and then it's a loss and it's a stain on the season. So at that point, at this point, you have to embrace the villainous role that you've been placed in just within this last 24 to 48 hours. It was kind of already there, and we kind of embraced it with, we wear the stormtroopers, we wear the ice whites and that kind of campaign. Now you got to dive all the way into that shit. You have to go full all in.
And you can make him look bad. You can make him if this, let's say Texas goes out theoretically and does what we think they can do, right? Starting with the first opponent, which is Rice. And I think back to 2019 LSU, and we realized they were different. It wasn't even when they played us week 2. It was week 1 against Georgia Southern when they came out throwing the football over the place. Georgia's they're beating the crap out of Georgia Southern. And people are like, why is Joe Burrow still in the game? Why is Justin Jefferson still out there? But they were making a point. Right. Texas needs to go out there and do that. So by the time October rolls around, it's the bad guys are here.
Sark needs to be,
and he can make himself also look bad because Brett, you could be the person that woke up the sleeping giant, and the rest of these Big 12 teams are looking at you Like, yo, if you had
Please.
just kept your mouth shut, we would have had typical choker Texas
Right.
in the conference. But because you wanted to go out there and talk trash, now you gave them all this extra energy.
Oh.
I hope that's the case for our sake.
This is the
let us win this Big 12.
This is the Longhorn fan battle, so we won't talk about that other school a little bit north of us. But in a perfect scenario, how great would it be if Brett was forced to give the trophy to one of those two teams? If he was forced to say, I have to give this trophy at the end of the season to Texas or OU, it's not going to happen because OU is probably – I think they're going to win. They're going to be 5-7 again, in my opinion. I think they're that bad.
They're
5
playing
7, 6
a
6.
very easy schedule this year. You got
I just don't think even in conference, right? 5-7, 6. I just don't think they're that good, and I don't think they've gotten any better. Usually, sure is quarterback a little bit better or than the quarterback that we faced last year? Absolutely, 100%. But we've got to keep in mind this is the same team even before we played them last year. They got blown out the water by Kansas State the week before, or TCU the week before, if I'm not mistaken.
Kansas State, both.
Yeah, it was like 50. I think one of those games was like 40 points before halftime.
Right.
There's a long way. There's a long way for that team to go, and I had a hot take earlier in the show a couple weeks ago that I don't think Brent Venables makes it out of OU this year. I think he's out of there before they get to the SEC.
Yikes!
If they go 5-7, 6 and 6
scorching
again,
hot take.
Yeah, if they go 5-7, 6 and 6 again, there's no way they can make it. He can make it into the SEC. The only way they keep him is knowing that they're going into a brand new conference. They can't change their coach, so they keep him anyway.
Right.
And then they ship them off if they suck next year. But anyway,
I think you would be right if they have a 5-7, 6-6 type year with this schedule. We have to remember, like, Vegas has them at 9.5 wins. We're both there at 9.5, but OU's there at 9.5. and if you look at the schedule, it's like they don't play anybody until they play us. Like they should be theoretically they should be. I'm like, y'all should be undefeated by the time y'all get to Dallas, just off the strength of there's no. I really don't, but and I think BB has recruited well, and so far. But if they struggle the way you're predicting, then anything could happen because they ain't gonna tolerate that, especially after the success they've had the last 20 years. Hell no.
No, not at all.
Yeah, not at all.
But to the point, though, to the original point, if this commissioner shows up to Arlington in December, and both Texas and OU are there, that's a nightmare for him.
That'd be great. Well,
God forbid one of them is a playoff team. Does the Big 12 claim that?
Could you imagine?
100%. Why would?
Does the Big 12 claim that?
Of course they would. Why wouldn't he claim it? Because now you're talking about, well, we're still the Big 12. It is not the new Big 12 yet.
Right.
It is still Brett Yormark's Big 12 as his reign as commissioner. See, the time.
So he's going to say, I had a playoff team in 2023.
Why wouldn't he?
Man, I'll rip those Big 12 patches right off my uniform, man.
SEC, baby.
It's out of here, dog. Just leave it blank for now. You know what I'm saying? Get that off. Get that off.
Unclaimed. In all seriousness, no. I mean, that is something that is potentially something that we need to look at as if OU gets all the way to the Big 12 championship game. Because look, Texas is going to get there. They might stumble across the road, but Texas is going to get there. If OU gets there, I think it's just icing on the cake, right? And we'll see what happens there. The next thing I want to talk about tonight. So last week, for those of you that didn't tune in, and for the folks that are watching here through cross stream, last week we discussed playmakers on the defense, and we really defined playmakers on the defense as players that could make a stop or get a turnover at key moments of the game. Whether that's a forced fumble, a sack, interception, fumble recovery, punt block, whatever that case might be. And we talked about a few folks that we thought could be that type of presence on the field this year. The obvious one, Jalen Ford. I think last year I read or heard that he averaged one playmaking play per game this year.
Right.
I think you're going to need more than that this year in the Big 12, especially if we're talking about putting a hurt on every single team in the Big 12, putting up 50, putting up 60, putting up 40. You're going to have to get some turnovers. You're going to need to get some key plays to occur. This week, where we're going to focus is on the offensive end. And before I ask you guys what you guys think, there are some caveats to the rule.
Okay.
Quinn Ewers cannot be picked. He's eliminated.
Of course.
And no X, right? So Xavier Worthy also off limits.
Right.
So I'm hoping that you guys will dig deep. And Steve, I'm going to start with you this time. If you can tell me first give me a number and then maybe give me who those players are that you feel like are what we call quote unquote playmakers on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, so on the offensive side, and shout out to Poke Casino, another donation here. Appreciate you. Hopefully that is the path we see for Yarmar, but for content creators like ourselves, we appreciate that. I'm looking at Ja'Tavion Sanders. For me, that's been my guy, and I think I had a hot take, maybe not on this channel, my shows, but on one of my appearances. I actually think there's a realistic chance he could lead Texas in touchdowns, not passing, but in terms of rushing or receiving. There's a chance Ja'Tavion Sanders could lead in touchdowns.
He's a red zone threat for sure.
He's an extreme red zone threat. He's a seam breaker. So he's somebody that can score from 20, 30 yards away. The other thing that we did not see after the Alabama game that I hope Sark at some point can go back to is flexing him out wide, whether it's to the boundary or wherever, and using him on fade.
Somebody feels me, man. Oh my God.
But look at who he's going up against. You've got linebackers that you're putting slot corners that Ja'Tavion's eventually. It should be a no-brainer that Ja'Tavion's out there on fade routes there in the red zone.
Just fishing for it. If you see a safety go over there. I mean, one thing I've seen in a lot of our practice clips is they are running a lot more trips and bunch type stuff. So even if you have a little package where you have, let's say we're in 11 personnel and you have 80 Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and whether it's Jay Witt or Nair or Jonte Cook or whoever, to the field, and then you flex JT to the other side, you're going to get a safety or a backer going with them.
Right.
That's what he did all day long at Denton Ryan. I mean, let's just, for an offensive side, they were like, go run a 9 and just we'll lob it to you and use your basketball player.
Literally with his hands up.
Dude's what, 6'6", 250?
If you look at the Alabama game, everybody has Kool-Aid McKinstry, who we'll see again this year, as one of the top corners going into the draft next year, as one of the top 10 defensive players in college football. We threw a fade where Kool-Aid had JT, and he literally tackled JT in the end zone. Unfortunately, the refs, we were dealing with Big 12 officiating, and it got the best of us. But if you go watch the play, JT wins the route with Kool-Aid on him. So what's he going to do to a safety or a backer in that scenario? Right. That's my guy, JT Sanders.
All right, Tim.
So I have a couple of guys. JT Sanders is definitely one of those guys, but we've already kind of talked about him in detail, so I'll skip over him. One of the guys that I definitely wanted to talk about was A.D. Mitchell, and Jordan Whittington. The reason why I want to talk about these two gentlemen in general is because they have the most experience, right? Whittington's been around for quite a bit of time. As y'all know, he did have a couple of really bad injuries that delayed his playing career for a while, but luckily he was able to actually get back on the field, get healthy. Of course, he also had the COVID year, so that was an issue as well, and that gave him an extra year of eligibility. And so, like, I really and I've watched Jordan Whittington very, very, very closely because he's one of the oldest receivers, if not the oldest receiver on the team. He's just got a little. He's seen it all, right? He's been on the highs, he's been on the lowest parts, and so with that being said, he'll be able to just kind of be that calming presence when things are kind of rowdy, whether it be in Tuscaloosa or whether it be playing against Tech, the day after Thanksgiving. AD Mitchell he's been a part of a championship team. That is one thing outside of Sark and a couple of the position coaches we didn't necessarily have, right? So when you have somebody when you have somebody that has played and been in championship situations, he can then bring whatever that the swagger or the attitude over to that team, to where they can get even the hardware. I've seen coaches just walk in from opposing teams and just drop their hardware and be like, if you want one of these, I know what it's like to get that. I'm hoping Sark does that every single year that he's a coach here, because those rings carry weight. We're arguably looking at one of the craziest dynasties that we'll probably ever see in sports within Alabama. I know they haven't been a winner within the last couple of years, but they've still been very much in the mix. So they still got some reign there. And so with that being said, and with Georgia going back to back, they're on the upswing. You know what I mean? So with that being said, AD coming over and just being able to say, hey, I've beaten Alabama. I know what it takes to beat Alabama. I've got 2 rings. I've contributed to my team. Like, I know what it's like. And if, you don't necessarily have to follow me, but like, I got some stuff that I can give you. I can give you some gems on what to do, maybe how to run better routes, or, just to maybe even to address adversity a little bit better. So, I look at those 2 guys as definitely playmakers, but not necessarily on the field, but off the field as well.
Yeah, I think AD Mitchell is easy. The one thing that not only does AD Mitchell have experience playing in those games, the man's got 4 touchdowns in 4 playoff games. Like, the dude loves to score, and he's going to have plenty of.
That's the biggest moment you can possibly be in.
Yeah,
right.
Now, and Poke has a comment here. If we can get 3 receivers at 1,000 yards, we'll be in a great spot. Listen, I was talking to Tim in pre-show before Steve came in, and I was like, look, man, if Quinn Ewers gets 40 touchdowns this year, which I don't know is going to happen or not, I think I'll probably elevate him off at 35. If Quinn Ewers gets 40 touchdowns, we're not losing the game, right? I think that's when you're at a point to where the offense is firing on all cylinders, and you are using all those weapons. And this is kind of where 1,000-yard receiver, 3,000-yard receivers could be possible, right? AD
right.
Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. I guess the third one would be Jordan Whittington. I don't know if he gets 1,000 yards. Maybe Isaiah Nayor, Shante Cook.
Yeah, I think it looks great in theory. Trust me, and I would love it. But I think the thing is that room, and I think Sark is actually going to tap a little bit more into that depth this year. There's too many guys. Like, it's going to be too hard. Shante Cook is going to take up too many snaps for a third guy to get 1,000 yards. Unless there's a situation where we have injuries that pop up and we really don't have a rotation anymore. So because it's going to be based upon the snap counts. Let's be honest. You got to be on the field enough to get 1,000 yards.
Right.
So, we'll have to see how that plays out. But the thing is, you have a bunch of guys that have the ability, if they are fed, to do that. That's the point.
Right.
And that's what Texas can present.
This team hasn't had depth this big, this much depth on both sides of the ball. Decade? 12 years?
Yeah.
Is it since the 2010, 2009?
That's exactly
what 2009. This is the last time they had this type of depth.
Yeah. They are 5 stars everywhere on this roster, up and down. And there's more coming in, right? It's almost like they're starting a factory. And I've said this a multitude of times on this show, and Steve, I know you've said it a multitude of times. The only thing that's missing is winning. If you win and you start to win, listen, the first time the 10-win season happens in Texas with this type of thing, with this type of team, it's done. I think it's a wrap at that point. With that being said, my guy is Jordan Whittington. I think he's just Mr. Reliable. I get that Jatavian Sanders is there as a safety blanket for Quinn, but I think Jordan Whittington's role this year in his his coming back to the team is to be that guy that's a secondary safety blanket, is to be that guy that is that leader on the field, to be the slot guy that can run the little drag route to get the little 3rd and 5s that are done or that are there, or get a quick RPO catch there on 4th down. I think Jordan Whittington helps drives stay alive this year.
Right.
It's something that this team struggled with consistently last year, and I think having AD Mitchell on the other end not only benefits Xavier, and I think that's the obvious answer, but it does benefit Jordan Whittington in the slot, and it benefits Jatavian Sanders. So I think Jordan Whittington's that guy that already has reliable hands, is going to be able to take advantage of the other weapons that are around him, and will be able to keep drives alive. So Jim asks, how many wins is Texas getting this season? If they don't, is Sark in trouble? It's actually a really good segue, and I think we're going to get to that here in a second, because it's a very, very good question.
That is one of the topics.
It is actually the last topic, and what I'll do here, Steve, is so what we've done just to keep all the new viewers updated is over the last 3 weeks we've picked 3 games a week. Right, start at the top, go down, and these aren't score predictions. These aren't over and analyzing games or anything. That's what we're going to do week to week as the season goes on. But this is just more like today, as of today, the way it looks. What do you see for this team record wise? So I've kind of kept tally. I think Tim, you only have the team losing 1 game to Kansas State.
Right.
I have this team losing 2 games back to back to Kansas State and TCU.
Right.
And that's kind of where we have us left off. That puts us both in the Big 12 championship game. But Steve, what do you have for this team, and what are you thinking as far as a number of wins for this team?
I have the team at 10-2.
Okay.
This year. My losses are different. I think they lose. So the way I kind of look at it is, it's hard for me to pick week 2 at Alabama. That's hard for me to say we're going to go down there and beat them, even with what Bama's lost and everything. But that's just me. And I think that with what Nick Saban is trying to go back to, I have some questions about Texas's ability to stop the run with my edges and setting the edge properly with what I think Alabama is going to deploy. Now, if we can get past that and those edges are better than I think they will be against the run, I'm not talking about pass rush, I'm just talking about setting the edge, then we're in play to win that game and get our confidence up.
Sure. Right.
I think we're going to come out hell-bent on the Big 12, but I do think that the Big 12 refs and Brett, they're going to get their chunk of blood in one of these games. Because the reality is, as fired up and motivated as we can be, 2 things cross my mind with Texas. One of the biggest issues is I have yet to see Texas over the last 13 years play well when they've been playing well. What I mean by that is you have as soon as we get on a nice little string of games, whether it was that first year with Sark where we get out of TCU, we're 4-1, we go into OU, that whole comeback happens and it just sinks them.
Collapse. Yep. Right?
It sinks them. I thought, okay, they recovered from the Arkansas game. They're 4-1. Great momentum. You're up 3 scores. They've shown me mentally over the last 13 years. So they got to prove to me that they know how to handle success. I don't want to see another 2018. We're 6-1, top 10 team in the country. We're talking playoffs in 2018. We've already beaten OU. We've already beaten USC. And then a whole bunch of people get suspended and don't even play the first half of the Oklahoma State game, and we lose a game we're not supposed to lose. That's Texas mentality of getting in their own way. Right. So if they can eliminate that, for the most part, I see them at 10-2, which is reasonable. Yep. You're in Arlington, and go win the Big 12 and take that trophy from that man. That's how I see it.
Okay. I do think that, and I think, you know, yeah, we don't go to Oklahoma State. Thankfully, we don't see Oklahoma State this year. But I still think there's some tricky games on here. And, you know, TCU, K-State, these are not teams that we've done well against. Well, K-State we've beaten, but it's always been a struggle. We've beaten K-State 7 years in a row. It's been a struggle every year, though, outside of maybe a couple. TCU is not a team that we played well against at all. I thought we should have beaten TCU last year.
You definitely should have.
That's just one of those.
You didn't score an offensive
touchdown. Games, right?
Yeah.
That's just one of those games that I just feel like this team just runs into every year, where just something strange happens when it shouldn't.
The TCU game from last year, that was probably the most frustrated I was at any point last year, honestly.
Oh yeah,
just the simple fact of what was on the line at home. Yep. After everything that had gone wrong earlier in the season, it's like, damn, we're right back here. After all the injuries, we can make it to Arlington. Like, everybody knew it was on the line, and the defense comes out and gives me an all-timer of a performance against the TCU offense that was averaging 45 points a game.
You want to talk about somebody?
Think about that.
Yeah,
they were getting clobbered.
Yeah, but the offense.
TCU came into that game averaging 45 points a game. They were number 3 in the nation in scoring offense. Max Duggan finished second in the Heisman race.
Right.
And Jahdae Barron scored in that game. So the defense even got me points.
Right.
And we still couldn't score.
Right.
We basically needed a touchdown the way that game was going. We couldn't get one. And we had the best, arguably the best running back in the nation. Couldn't get one touchdown. Yeah, that game was frustrating. It was just, but again, these are the types of things that I'm talking about, where just weird things happen. Weird things happen. Thankfully, we go to TCU, so I don't know. But in the past, just in Texas, last 10, 15 years, weird things happen in Lubbock, weird things happen in Fort Worth, weird things happen in Manhattan. Thankfully, we have all these games at home, except that game there in Fort Worth, which is just weird. I don't know. I
hope it's like the game I went to the last time, because I live up here. I live in Arlington, so I'm about 15 minutes from TCU. The last game we played at TCU, we won when Bijan kind of ran the clock out when TCU was right there on our heels. They still had Zach Evans, and they were right there on our heels. We ran the clock out on them. But you're right. I mean, that it's always been this little mystique there. I do think this. Whenever I go to a TCU game, it's about 50, 60% Longhorn fans there. So it ain't going to be an issue with the crowd. No disrespect to TCU, but y'all just don't have, they have 3,000 students, and DFW is full of Texas fans. So every time that stadium is at least split, right?
Right.
So you only leave the state twice, right? You go to Iowa and you go to Bama.
Wild.
That's it.
That's wild to think about. Oh, Ames is another place that sucks. God. Hopefully, and I don't think that's a night game this year, but that's another place that sucks to play. But hey,
they'll probably make it a night game because it'll be cold.
Right.
It's November.
They're going to make that a night game.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to make that a night game for sure.
Out of spite, listen.
Or an 11 a.m. kickoff.
They could be.
We won't get an 11 a.m. kickoff for the Iowa State.
Bro. That's a night game, bro. That's going to be a night game on ESPN. They're going to broadcast the hell out of it on Fox Sports. That's going to be a night game.
Oh,
have y'all noticed that they did set a kickoff time for the Texas Tech game at 6:30 at night?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise. I'm not surprised by that.
Right.
I love it.
Oh, listen. I would love it to be 10:30 at night and we're scoring our 70th point. I cannot.
I'm okay with
game
that.
I cannot wait for.
Listen, I'm going to be fine with that.
Yeah, that is the one game I can't wait for. I might actually go to that game. If it's a $400 ticket, I'm going to go buy that. I'm going to buy that ticket the day of the game and go. I'm going to that game.
So I do have a question. And Steve, you can answer this. You said that you had Texas going 10-2. What do you feel like is the absolute worst that can happen as far as record wise? When you look at this when you look at the schedule and you see where we're playing and how we're playing, what is your absolute worst that you can see Texas going versus your 10-2 at best?
I will say this. I think if you go 8-4 again, even with injuries, people are asking questions going into the SEC. Let's just be honest.
Yep.
I think if you go 8-4, you're having conversations about people like Colin Simmons flipping to LSU. Like your recruiting starts to get impacted. I'm just being blunt honest.
Yeah.
I think that, and it's a fine line. Like 9-3, you can kind of sell 9-3. People, you can, from a standpoint of now, it's always going to depend on the context of the losses and how they happen. And did you blow games again? But 9-3, it's like, okay, and if you're 9-3, and this is shout out to the Unfiltered guys and my boy Chris Simpkins who said this. If you're 9-3, you still need to be in Arlington, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, don't go 9-3 and don't even make it to the championship.
Honestly, being 9-3, you could still make the Big 12 championship being 9-3. I think that is realistic.
Yes.
The end of the day,
I don't think there'll be anybody undefeated this year, personally.
No. I don't think this team is. I don't think
Texas can't go 8-4 again, though. No, not with this roster. They have the most experience in the conference.
Right. You've got the entire offensive line coming back. The entire coaching staff coming back. The water boys coming back. The trash can from last season is still there. It's in the same spot. Like everything, this is lined up for Texas perfectly. The roster is great. It's a Big 12 or bust for me, honestly. Even if you go 10-2 or you go 9-3, if you don't win the Big 12, it's a bust for me. I think it's a failure of the season. Now, as far as asking questions, I think 8-4, staying the same, depending on how you lose going into the SEC. I think questions with Stark are starting to get asked, and and we know how our boosters are. Man,
we know how they are, but I will say this. The thing that Sark has done for himself is he has earned himself the benefit of the doubt in every realm of the job, minus the wins. If the wins come, he's literally perfect for Texas because he's great off the field. He's great on the mic. He's great with the boosters. He's great with recruiting. Yep. He's roster management has actually been on point. He's great. The consistency with the coaching staff has been there. Guys, Tom Herman won 10 games, and you can make the argument, if not for COVID and games getting canceled, he probably wins 10 games in 2020, even with the losses. When you think about who we didn't even play and the Kansas game getting canceled. Tom Herman still got fired because he was not liked. He was not like people. So when the questions start getting asked, who gonna go to bat for you? And that's something that folks listening, even if you're in corporate America or wherever you work, if you're not liked and your job performance starts to dip, nobody's gonna have your back. Right. So at least Sark having that buy-in, being a Chris Del Conte hire, being somebody that the boosters really, really pursued, they're gonna have more. He got Arch Manning. They're gonna have more patience with Sark. Yeah. But at the same token, everybody in the back of everybody's mind that, he can't win. Can he win 10 games? Has he ever won 10 games? Does he know how to win as a head coach?
Questions won't stop. Yeah.
It won't stop.
And it's just going to continue. Stark personally, it's going to continue to be a question, right? Now you're talking about year 3. This year, it would be even worse. I think it'd be even worse because you came in, you talked about how you got your culture. You have a lot of weapons. Embrace the hate. We are the hunters. Like, you do all these things preseason now, and then you still fail. It is not a good look for Sark. Exactly. I do agree that he is, even if he is liked, because he is liked by the boosters, he may get one more year. But that line is so thin. That leash will be very, very thin. There is a comment in here from Jacob talking about we couldn't stand Turtle Tom. Listen, man, I watched the players that played under Tom Herman in the NFL. And it makes me upset every time I watch him play.
Absolutely.
I watch Caden Stearns play. I watch Sam. Obviously, I watch Sam play. Right. I watch these guys play in the NFL, make rosters, do really well, and I get really, really upset every time I do it because Tom Herman failed the development of this team, in my opinion.
I want to say one thing. You picked Jordan Whittington as your guy as an offensive playmaker, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna just say this candidly. Somebody wants to clip it. I don't give a damn. Steve Sarkisian saved Jordan Whittington's career because
100%.
he's a common sense coach and had a grown man training staff.
Yeah.
What Tom Herman was doing, it's not a coincidence that when people talk about the injury history and people being bust and the guys that ended up out of football, it was happening across the board when you look at the 2018 and 2019 recruiting classes.
Right.
And Jordan Whittington was in that 2019 group. But what kind of helped him is staying in football. You hear about the Jake Smiths of the world, and you think about the weight gain. Jordan Whittington got here. We tried to make him what? We tried to make him a running back.
Right.
Right. We immediately added 20 pounds.
Why do we do this in Texas, man? Why do we do this in Texas?
I mean, I can go down the list.
Positions?
I can go down the list. Jake Smith, they were trying to make him a running back receiver combo.
Yep.
Bolt him up. And all it did was cause injury problems for those players. They were not their natural bodies. People remember Brennan Eagles. Brennan Eagles gets here. He looks like Des Bryant coming out of high school. Next thing you know, we got this boy at 240 pounds. Right?
But what? Though?
Go look at the weights of every receiver on Tom Herman's team from 2018 to 2020, and then look at Steve Sarkisian's receivers today. Right. I think we may have one or two receivers over 200 pounds on the roster right now.
Everybody else is pretty
but they're all in that 180, 190 range, right?
Right.
Maybe 195, but definitely that's like, but it's like
unless you're an actual big frame to carry that weight, like you were designed to carry that weight.
Right.
Guys were getting here. Keontae Ingram, they talk about him. Keontae Ingram, his freshman year, weighed 205. Right. We had him up to 238. We had Sam Ellinger up to 245. Bro, all these guys are in the NFL now in the 220s, back at their high school weight.
Right. Playing well and playing. They're
playing
well. Making rosters multiple years in a row. And it's just like, bro, these were NFL players the entire time they were here.
I really wonder if Jordan Whittington would have had the injury problems. I know he came out of high school with the groin, right? But I honestly feel as though if he had come in as a freshman under Steve Sarkisian, they probably redshirt him, make sure he's healthy, and he's probably healthy at a healthy weight his entire college career, no problem under Sark.
No issues whatsoever.
Crazy.
By the way, our heaviest wide receiver is actually right now currently is Isaiah Nayar. He's 215 pounds. The second heaviest is Paxton Anderson. He's the big guy. He's like 6'5".
Gary's grandson.
Yeah.
Right. He's 213. Like that's it.
I would have never guessed Isaiah Nayar was 215.
Well, he's got to go through a lot.
He has a frame though. Right. He has a frame to carry 215. Right. Isaiah Nayar in Tom Herman's system, they would have made him gain 20 pounds.
Right.
That's insane.
Isaiah Nayar is 6'3". Well, he's a big guy.
When I talked to I did an interview with Caden Stearns a couple years ago. It was going into the 2021 season. All he said was Bijan is very fortunate to be with this coaching staff now because they won't mess up his body.
Wow.
Really? That's very telling. Like,
think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
And think about it.
I mean, yeah, from an interview perspective, there was one of Sark's first interviews as a head coach for the University of Texas. He definitely talked about making sure that he gets the shifty guys into space so that he can get those guys out on the outsides so he can have some big playability on the outside and take advantage of mismatches within the hedges. So it makes sense, the coaching style, when you think about how the training staffs and what they were doing with players. And Sam did start out very small, and now he looks like a linebacker in the NFL. Now, granted, it's going to work out for him the best because you don't really have that much time to get that ball off. So that in the end, it could work out for him at that position. But why do I need a 235-pound safety? I don't. He don't need to be that big. Yeah. He came in at 215.
The one thing I do like about Sark and his tenure so far, he basically embraced the roster he got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, he embraced this roster. He took some of these guys that weren't performing well and had them performing well. Obviously, Keontae Ingram leaves, but you've got guys, Alfred Collins. You've got
Look at Christian
Moyo
Jones.
Oshimo, Christian Jones.
Yeah.
Moyo Oshimo. I mean, there's you can just go down the list, and there's still guys on this roster. Probably, I think the
Keandre Coburn doesn't get drafted last year. Keandre Coburn doesn't get drafted last year if this staff doesn't come and get his body right, got his body into a good, reasonable where he can play more snaps and be more effective. There's so many guys. Jalen Ford was Jalen Ford, 3-star recruit. Okay, Jeff Cho, PK. This group, they've coached a lot of guys up, man. Right. Jordan Whittington is the guy we just talked about. Jatavian Sanders, who I know wasn't a Herman guy, but the way that they've developed him, there's actual signs and proof of development that you just haven't had before.
Right.
So
which makes it more exciting that now we're getting 5-star recruits and guys that are at a level. I'm very excited to see Anthony Hill this year. I know Tim's very excited to see CJ Baxter and see what that kind of evolves to. But if we're able to take these guys that were not 5-star recruits and develop them, which has been a challenge at Texas for so long,
right?
The sky's the limit with this team with 5-star recruits. But you have to win 10 games this year. You have to win the Big 12.
You have to.
But with that being said, what are you thinking here, Steve, as far as postseason predictions? Is this the Big 12 champion? Is there what's beyond the Big 12 championship?
I have not gone beyond in terms of I don't have my playoff teams yet. I don't know if Texas is going to be a playoff team per se with 2 losses. Considering there's some cupcake schedules out there where I think people have a built-in layup to get to the playoffs. I think Georgia kind of has a layup to get to the playoffs. I really do with their schedule this year. I think the winner of LSU at Florida State is going to be very interesting how that plays out between those two very early in the season because Florida State could potentially run the table if they beat Clemson later in the year. They really look good, and they hold serve against LSU and vice versa. So that's 2 teams right off the bat, right? Pac-12, we'll see what happens there. Big Ten, I think Ohio State and Michigan, between Ohio State and Michigan, they'll get a spot. Maybe both. Last year, both of them made it. So it's hard for me to. That's why I'm kind of iffy on it. But my thing is, I want to win this conference. That's my focus. We go into playoff contention. That's great. That's icing on the cake with this group. It really is. But I want to win this conference and throw the double bird up to everybody else and all these other poverty fools, these ungrateful miscreants that talked all this trash. Some of you guys will be missed. Most of you won't. And I'm ready to move forward to the SEC.
Right.
For sure. Tim?
So I kind of went back and forth with it. I'm not going to fake it. I really do. I could see Texas playing either Kansas or Oklahoma. I've been leaning or Kansas State, Oklahoma. I've been leaning more towards Kansas State, to be honest with you. I just don't like the end, that second half of the season for Oklahoma. I just don't necessarily like it. For them, I think there's a lot of games where you could overlook and trip up and then you're lost. I also have been thinking really deep and hard about that Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State game, the Battle of Bedlam. That's their real last chance for Oklahoma State to get one off. Like I could definitely see that. Oklahoma State's not going with us to the SEC, and a lot of people forget that was kind of one of the deals even back in the day. Is like, hey, Oklahoma, if you're out of here, we're going with you. Right. We're a package deal, and so when that did happen, I could definitely see that being a situation where Oklahoma
Bedlam will be very emotional this year.
Exactly.
Bedlam may resemble the last Texas A&M game You remember
We're
how
passing the
emotional that
torch.
game was?
Oh, dude.
What? I remember how it was.
Game,
It was. I was near. So I lived about 7 minutes away from the stadium, Steve. So I can hear everything. So I remember that when that happened, I was here, and it was just it was real weird, man. It was like kind of a cool night. It was hot the majority of the day. It kind of cooled off, and then like there was literally it kind of reminded me of a small town where nothing was open. The only things that was open was sports bars and the stadium itself. Other than that, and I had never seen that before. Even the championship year, it like the city was just a buzz. That year specifically, nothing was open. And so I could see that happening. So that's why I've leaned more towards Kansas State. I do have Kansas State losing to Texas. But we can talk about it next week. I still don't think Texas makes the playoff. Even at 11-1, it's just too much. It's too
at 11-1.
You don't think at 11-1 Texas
at
make the
11
playoff?
they don't get in?
I think they throwing us in there, brother, just for the ratings.
Right.
It's still a business now.
This
is still a business now.
From a business standpoint, you got to do it, right?
You have
but
to.
For some reason, I really feel like they're going to give us – I feel like they're going to be like, y'all going to be good next year. We'll worry about y'all next year. We'll put you in the New Year's 6. But playoff games, we out of here. So I don't see, and we haven't talked about playoff games, but I have a Big Four. Okay, they're reminiscent to what we've seen in the past. Okay, as far as Big 12 team, as far as SEC teams, I could even see like 3 SEC teams getting in there this year.
3?
Like, it's I see it. I can see it can either be 2 Big 10, like Steve said, 2 Big 10, 2 SEC. I can see 3 SEC teams getting in there as well. We have to look at the schedule and how that shit is based and built for the Big 10 and the SEC. It looks so much better for them at the end of the year than it does for us, even with the Big 12 championship. It just those last couple of games are just major games. These are like
but if Texas is 11-1 and one of those wins is over Alabama,
they're in. That seals the deal, in my opinion. Yeah,
that's at Alabama,
right? That's true. That's true.
But what now, if you're saying if they get blown out by Bama, but then cruise to their Big 12,
right?
And all these other teams are like under. I don't know. I don't see. I guess I disagree. I don't see a whole bunch of juggernauts like that, like we saw even last year.
Right.
Yeah. There's not really that one team that sticks out to any. Like, if you obviously preseason, week 1, whatever. If I were to pick a number one right now today, I don't really think there's a clear-cut number one. I think there's a lot of really, really good teams.
Right.
I don't think there's a clear-cut number one. Also, secondly, I think the NCAA is probably, waiting for an opportunity to stick it to the Big 12 too. If they have an opportunity to put Texas in as a Big 12 champion, they're going to do it. They're going to because regardless of whether or not they can wait to the SEC next year, the NCAA loves their money, so they're going to find any way to take advantage.
They put TCU in the playoffs last year, and they didn't even win the Big 12. Technically, they still made the playoffs.
Hey, point made.
And they still made a lot of it, and they still made a shit ton of money too. So they didn't really care.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. For some reason, I just feel like we're gonna get shafted at the end of the year.
We are gonna get shafted.
Yeah, and that to me, that's the best way to do it. We run the table. We have this miraculous season, and then not make the playoffs.
Oh man, because humans are involved and money's involved and business is involved.
Right.
Yeah.
Texas, I don't see Texas getting. Now, if it's 2008 and we're talking about computers making the decision, which is what happened, right? We don't have to deal with computers anymore, my brother. We have been set free in this particular regard.
We've been released from the shackles of the.
We've been set free. Yeah, we've been. Oh dang.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Well, Harish, what you got, man? What you got?
I've got Texas winning the Big 12. Right?
Okay.
To me, like I've said it for Tim 6 weeks now.
Right.
If this does not win the Big 12, this season is a bust. I don't care if you win in New Year's 6. I don't care if you won 9 games. I don't care if 9 is bigger than 8 and you're consistently improving. I don't care. Don't care if Quinn Ewers does 40 touchdowns. Don't care if you don't win the Big 12. Nothing else matters to me.
Right.
I want to go out of this conference on top, walking into the sunset, leaving the neighborhood into, we're basically going from, Austin to Highland Park. So I'm ready to roll into Highland Park, a champion of the old neighborhood, and we're rolling in on top. And if we don't do that, it's a failure.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
Listen, I'm hopeful. Again, the strongest drug you can sell nowadays, before the regular season starts, is hope. It's the strongest drug you can sell, baby. And that's what we're all doped up. The dopamine that's up with every click, with every video we watch, whatever podcast we watch. All it is hope. Like now, it's time for them to get to it. Exactly. It's time for
injected straight into the veins, man. Yeah, I've been waiting. I've finally found the drug. It's been 10 years. Injected straight into the veins.
Right.
Like, just give it to me. I'm ready. 8 days away. I'm ready to roll.
The amount of receipts and memes that could come of this video if they're typical Texas again, my goodness. But that's one thing I tell people.
We're here for it.
I tell people, all these people in the content creation community, this is another reason why you guys need to like the video and subscribe and subscribe to Longhorn Fan Battle right now. Go on YouTube, Twitter, every social media platform. They're on there. Go subscribe to these guys because it's hard doing what we do because we're putting ourselves out there.
Putting it out there. And
okay, I've been doing it for years. Okay, yeah. I've made my mistakes. Sometimes I've been humble. Sometimes y'all came for me when I was like, hey, I don't think we're gonna be that good. And I was right. And y'all gave me crap at the beginning of the season because I wasn't as hopeful. I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid. But yeah, but y'all watch me grow with y'all over the years. It is hard doing this. So in order to reward what we're doing, like us, follow us, subscribe, and join the community. We really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
We really do. And Steve, before we wrap up here, we do thank you for coming on the show tonight. It's been a blast. We had a good old time. Lots of great discussions. Before we head out for the night, for those of the viewers that aren't watching or new to the channel, where can we find you and what have you been up to?
So Fanatic Perspective on YouTube, Fanatic Perspective on Twitter, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, the whole bit. The latest announcement and thing we have going is a little partnership or collaboration, with Bleacher Report. So we recently started doing some content for Bleacher Report. So if you download the Bleacher Report app and go to Texas football, you can see a live video I did there on August 23rd, as well as some polls and some content that we're drumming up. One of the things I like about Bleacher Report is they want content in the hands of people that actually are diehard fans of the team. It's very similar to like a Reddit forum, very engaging, incredible community over there at Bleacher Report. So go check us out. I'm hoping to do some more content for them and throughout the season. But it was a blast getting to host a live show on the Bleacher Report app and platform on August 23rd. So go check that out. And you guys can find me on there and follow me on Bleacher Report as well.
Awesome. And I did get a chance to check that show out right out the bat. Hot topic. So it was a great question that was asked on that show yesterday. I thought it was crazy. I was like, man, he's digging right into this. This is good stuff. So go check that out. It is out on your YouTube channel. I think you put it out earlier tonight.
Yep.
So, yeah, absolutely go check that out. Good stuff there. Tim, where can we find you?
You can find me at Tim Wayne on everything. I'm primarily on Twitter or X now, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I love to talk. I love to talk football. Again, I played football for a long period of time, man. So, if you want to talk, whether it's professional or you want to talk about the Horns, I'm definitely down to talk about it. Even if you want to, a lot of people fail to realize as well, we're not too far away from the college football game coming up too. And so that's also we talk about that ad nauseum, privately, Harish. But man, if you want to talk anything football, man, I'm definitely down. Again, born and raised Texan, so I'm Cowboys, Longhorns, quasi Tigers prior to Dabo getting there. So
Jesus.
if you want to talk football, man, feel free to hit me up.
Yeah, that Tigers thing is still weird to me. But hey, you do you. You can find me at the Uncle Gandhi everywhere. The Uncle Gandhi everywhere. Twitter, X, whatever, all the stuff. Also, find us at LH Fan Battle. Listen, for those of you that have not interacted with the Twitter channel, we are a trash talking group, right? This is what we do. It is the primary basis of the entire podcast. So we got you. We go after Aggie fans. We hunt. We are the hunters in this Twitterverse. We are the hunters in this Twitterverse. So thanks, guys, everybody, for tuning in. Steve, thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate it. We've got to do this again probably sometime in the season. And, of course, Tim, as always, thanks for joining in. We will see you guys next week. 8 days. Peace.
Welcome.